Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
All right, but your uh, microphone is very, very loud right now.
Loud?
Yes, it's noisy.
I
And
didn't.
didn't do anything, huh?
No.
Oh, that's better. That's
Okay, it
better.
was
Okay.
my.
No, no, move back. Move back. 2 inches, 3 inches. Now speak. Now
In
speak.
here?
No, no, don't move forward. Move back where you were just a second ago.
Okay.
Now speak. Now speak.
Okay.
Now talk to me. Talk to me. Don't move
Okay.
forward. Just sit there and talk to me.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Um.
good. Okay, that voice is good.
Okay.
All right. When you get too close, it's really, really noisy.
Okay.
So, um, yes, we just talked about experience.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be many, many experiences along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And the experiences along the way, what I mean along the way is along the path of the method of the Buddha. There are many, many places where we can wander into. Uh, including what is a real bodily experience, though from the outside, someone, for instance, could be taking a video and see you as you progress before you were in that state, and then you came out of that state, and the video is not going to show
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
different. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
really physical there. Everything that's happening is within the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's a way of understanding then that in fact everything that does happen is generally happening within the mind.
Mm-hmm.
That mental activity is what humans live in. We don't live in the reality, and because of that, we color or put a perspective on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I'm pointing at is nobody lives in the real world. Everyone lives in their own fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how close can we actually live into reality, or how deep can we go into fantasy? The next point would be um, that uh, we understand that there's a certain amount of fantasy, but the less the better. So in that regard, we could say that the closer we are to reality, the less suffering there is. The
Mm-hmm.
more fantasy we put into it, then the more danger becomes, because
Mm-hmm.
most of our danger is really fanciful. But it's also we're in the habit of it. But occasionally we'll have another kind of experience, and then in fact, as we begin to wake up, things will happen that are very surprising when the first time that we see them, but after a while, that too becomes ordinary. Everything is ordinary once you experience it often enough. Many examples of that, including skills that people learn, that before we have the skill, we find the need for it, and so we seek out help with someone who does have the skill, or we learn the skill. Once we learn the skill, now we don't need help, we've got the skill. And I can name you a variety of things that that's true of, including operating a sewing machine, being able to do mechanical work on your own car, your own meditation, learning music. I can't think of anything that does not have that sequence of we don't have the skill, we have to develop the skill, and then things are easy after the skill. That same thing is true with these kinds of experiences that we're talking about. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so part of the skill is learning how to handle these new experiences, as well as the skill then of allowing these experiences to become ordinary as if it's already happened a million times, so that we don't get, let us say, too attached to the new.
Mm-hmm.
That you could go so far even to say, even in a magical view of enlightenment, or in a magical view of um, an arahant or whatever, even that individual is going to be an arahant, or is going to be fully enlightened long enough that that too is going to become ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everything becomes ordinary after it's seen over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Another example of that is the Buddha says in Sutta number 22 that uh, that because he's kind of a public figure, that people will come and revile him and say bad things about him. But on that case, he does not have any dejection of the heart, or have any ill will or any problem. And there are those who will come to him and revere him highly, and yet he has on that account no elation of the heart. He can manage his heart without being praised. And then he says, the reason for that is because I've done this over and over again, that this is just ordinary ways. I have been cursed before, and I have been praised before. And because it's now become ordinary. Okay, so now we're looking at all kinds of different experiences that people can have with meditation, and they all become ordinary. Let us say someone who becomes skilled in the fourth jhana only becomes skilled in the fourth jhana because it's become ordinary.
Mm.
Okay, if that's true, then the first jhana, when one gains skill in the first jhana, that means it too has become ordinary. If we can think of it like that, then that ordinariness then takes into consideration even all of these experiences that we have on the way that give us these things. Because, um, for instance, there are various qualities and factors to each one of the jhanas. And the methodology that is normally done, or the correct way to do it, is by fully developing the first jhana in the sense of the skill of getting into it and the skill of maintaining it. Until that happens, before that skill of being able to get into it and then the skill of maintaining it happens, that means that he's not in control of the jhana factors, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, that means that he can put himself into systems and situations that appear to be jhana-like, but don't have all of the factors.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we have to understand it is that if we can get into first jhana and maintain that, it is from there that we can properly go into the next step, which would be from the fruit of first jhana into the path of second jhana. And then from that, we
Mm.
then gain the fruit of the second jhana. And the fruit of the second jhana is that it no longer takes work to be in this second jhana. Okay,
So
that's the
the
second jhana.
fruit would be the capability of domaining all of the qualities of the specific jhana.
Right. That here's
Okay.
where it goes. We have to develop the first jhana well enough to have the skills in it so that we can manipulate those skills to bring about the second jhana.
Mm-hmm.
But it is also possible in human behavior for us to have experiences that are also associated with the jhanas, but that we don't have, it's not really that jhana because we don't have all of the factors of that jhana, but we do
Mm-hmm.
have some of them and some of the characteristics, and that's what we're harping on. And when we harp on that, then we would call that an experience.
Mm.
Once the jhana is fully developed, all of those various factors of it are no longer a big experience. Now they're all in each one ordinary.
I see.
Okay, so this feeling
Okay.
of having the body float off into the air, or to feel like it's 60 feet tall, or that it feels radiant and vibrantly alive, these are all ordinary feelings that come along with the third and the fourth jhana, especially the fourth jhana. As we,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, disassociate ourselves away from the body, we have a completely different way of looking at the sensations that are in the body. But they're ordinary sensations. What's really going on is that the mind is focused in a way that makes things look or appear different. As it goes back to the camera looking at you while you go into this state and then back out of it, there's not going to be any visible change. Everything happened within the mind. So the
Okay.
question is, what happened in the mind?
Mm,
Okay, the answer
perfect. Yeah.
is that the sensations that were real and ordinary became sensational because we looked at them in a brand new way.
Mm-hmm.
When we say it like that, it automatically sounds just ordinary.
Yeah.
I'm making it just sound so ordinary, and yet many students, they are lusting after these special sensations that they have.
Uh,
Okay, and that they then pin their happiness or their hope on, I will feel happy if I have that sensation again.
again. Yeah.
Okay, but in
For sure.
fact, it was an ordinary sensation that I had. It was my viewpoint of the sensation that had changed.
Mm-hmm.
If there
Mm-hmm.
had been real, for instance, pain in the back, then the body would have showed us moving to get away from that pain. So if
Mm-hmm.
the body feels like it's floating in the air, we ought to at least look at it coming off the sheets just a little bit, but no, no change.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the sensation of the body getting really large, then we should see an indication of it changing in size a little bit just to go along with the sensation that it's grown large.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but these feelings of the body being like 50 or 60 feet tall is just an ordinary sensation in the fourth jhana. But it's also possible to have that sensation or that perception of the sensations without actually being in fourth jhana yet, because we don't have all of the factors of the fourth jhana, nor can we do any of the other things. But that's one of the indications that we become completely uh, disassociated from the body in the way that we normally perceive it. You could see it
Okay.
almost in the sense of it's a distortion of the proprioceptic system. So that the body,
Distortion of what?
the proprioceptic system, wherever you are or whatever posture you're in, just by noticing it, you know what posture you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You don't have to look at your body to see what posture it's in. How do you know? That's not actually sensation or touch of the body. This is a deeper sensational way of knowing the postures of the body, and that also is strongly connected with our sense of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So there's something inside the brain and the cochlea, the ability for us to maintain balance. The reason that it's able to maintain balance is because it has a proprioceptic sensing system that shows the positions of the body, especially in relationship to gravity.
Mm-hmm.
This is deeply embedded in anybody. A lot of people don't have a clue about it until you point it out and they say, yeah, that's right, I do know where my body is from the deep inside, not by looking at it in a mirror.
Yeah. It's like a mental image of sorts. I kind of was like expecting to talk to you about this because when I focus on my breath, I like recognize that I have, even with my eyes shut, like it's not quite an image, but it's like an expectation of like the place where the breath is going and coming out. and it has like a visual aspect to it, but it's not quite visual. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. That it
Yeah.
is, it's something like visual, but it's actually a feeling sensation
Yes.
that has a three-dimensional aspect to it in the sense of this is
Perfect.
the body.
Perfect. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And we don't even have any language about it because we don't even talk about this much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yet there are many who become skilled at using this in the sense of being able to play many sports, martial arts, certain kind of skills, uh, fine work with needles, all of that kind of stuff have to do with the fact that the body can learn things that are not stored up here. We don't have to think our way through a piece of music once we've learned it. The
Yeah.
piano can almost play it by itself
Yes.
if it's an easy piece that we've learned and are used to.
Mm-hmm.
So a matter of getting used to everything,
Mm-hmm.
including all of these sensations of the body. But on the way to practicing that correctly, there's no need to try to lust for that thing that happened because that's not what the goal is.
Mm.
And so don't mistake the goal for events.
Okay.
Okay. Um, at the far end of the scale, which is a good way for us to notice it, the Buddha talks about it, and Achan Po was really sure to talk about this. We had several conversations about the point that we don't know the mind of another person, or we don't even know much about our friends until we watch them for a long time through the thick and the thin of it. All right. So an example of that would be it's hard to tell if someone's free from anger until he misses several opportunities in a row to be angry. All right. But most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, people are not angry. How do you know whether someone's free of anger or not unless you've been around them for a long time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the way of looking at the freedom is not, I wish I were out of prison. Freedom is, look at that old prison back yonder. But it takes a while for us after we come out of something, is that we can look back on, reflect, and way that prison is way over yonder. Gosh, it's been so long since I've been angry. And that's the way to judge it. That we're not going
Mm-hmm.
to come to an event and say, now I am free. Well,
Mm-hmm.
this whole quality that we're working for is the quality of being free from suffering. And being free
Okay.
from anger would be one of them. And I can't see any event about a growing body or a floating body or any kind of sensational imagery that we can have of us uh, because of our meditation is going to free us from these deeper things. But that's
Mm-hmm.
really the goal. The goal is freedom from things that cause us dukkha. And that we work on that on two levels. One is the immediate level, right now. Dukkha, where is it? Don't step in it. But then the other part of it is dukkha. Oh, yeah, wow, right. That's way over yonder. It's been such a long time since I stepped in that cow pie.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the kind of way that is looked on as an arahant or his friends. Like one of the stories I tell is when Brenda called to complain about, I'm using Thai names now, Pramarut, was talking to this elderly gentleman on the boat on the way back from the retreat that Brenda had helped with um, Pramarut. And she knows Thai language. She speaks Thai. And so she was listening in on this conversation and she was appalled. She was aghast at what they were talking about because they were discussing that Ajahn Po was an arahant, which is almost a taboo subject. But it's not really taboo in Thai society. What's taboo about it is for one to discuss his own attainments.
Mm-hmm.
But for others to come back on a side and look at someone at the distance over a long period of time so that they can see these are the qualities of an arahant that
Mm-hmm.
this guy demonstrates over a long period of time, to show that in fact he does not take the opportunity to do these things that we would be calling defilements or asava, the outflows. In other words, they're
Mm-hmm.
not visible anymore. It's almost like someone who has acne. They go to the dermatologist and now they've got a clear face. The question is,
Mm-hmm.
how long is it going to be clear before things start popping out again and they have to go back to the dermatologist? This is a good example of the asava. That's what the word means. It sometimes translated into English as cankers,
Cankers.
cankers or outflows,
Okay.
scabs, bruises, marks on the arm,
Okay.
this kind of thing, pimples. Um, at a big level, a cyst, a big knotty thing on the skin, a protrusion, something that comes out. Okay, an outflow.
Okay.
This is what uh, the word kilesa actually means. It's a canker. So the question is any of this stuff that could come out, any of these human pimples, does this guy have it, or does he have a clear face on a regular basis?
Mm-hmm.
That's a way of looking at it. The arahant then is one who uh, generally, how to say it, he never asks for anything personally. Buddy, do you have a dime? No, he just expects everything to
Come
happen
to him.
that he
Yeah.
needs. He's satisfied with the way things are. So he doesn't ask lay people for gifts. This is an issue of when can the
Mm-hmm.
monks stop wanting things. I,
Mm-hmm.
re- I remember exactly that happening with me, that Ajahn Po, I asked him, could I have a straight razor? And he wouldn't get it to me. And yet a razor is something that's one of the requirements for the monks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, he wouldn't give it to me. Um, but not that he refused. It was just that it never happened. Okay, so these are the kind of things that we can begin to understand, that when one does not ever express fear or surprise,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
that kilesa, that outflow of um, being surprised about something new, doesn't occur because the instinct of fear is not dead. It's just been there, done that. It's like
I see.
the dog doesn't bark because that friend has been in the yard before.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything becomes really easy going like that. And so the monk doesn't get surprised. He doesn't get frustrated. He doesn't want things. Um, he doesn't compete with anyone, nor talk down about another person. That he takes what's happening in the moment and just deals with the moment. And often what the monk at that level will do will be nothing other than listen to someone complain.
I see.
Okay. Why is that? Because if someone's coming to the old monk to complain, knowing that he's probably not going to do anything about it anyway, then more than likely that person is also out and about the temple complaining to other people about their issue who will do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole place is full of arahats and nobody's going to do anything. You got your own problem. And so the arahat winds up not doing much of anything. The Buddha,
Okay.
fact, he recognized at that point where he was that he is an arahant, has to be the one who teaches the Dhamma because right now nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
After he got the Sangha going, after he got students like Sariputta and Mahamangala and Mahakassapa, that quality of monk, they were the ones who wound up having all the teaching duties that the Buddha just hung around. He just hung out.
Okay.
And so he would see visitors, but one of the things that he said in one of the suttas, which is actually quite surprising, not that monks, but when visitors from the outside, including kings and dignitaries and Brahmins and that kind of stuff, when they come to talk to the Buddha's intention is to give them just enough to get them satisfied so that they will leave.
Mm.
That if they want deeper teachings of the Dhamma, we've got all of these other teachers that are here that have students who are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But the Buddha's intention is to get rid of people.
I see.
And so um, the Arahats, in fact, wind up not being the best teachers. And so that's one of the things you can tell because generally even the student who is beloved and devoted to his teacher will send him to other teachers. That is not my student. Right? Even though the student says this is my teacher, that teacher is more than likely, if he's an arahant, he's going to send you to other teachers anyway.
I see.
And so, if a monk is not if he's not careful, he will get passed from one arahant to another arahant to an arahant,
An
finally
endless
not
loop.
an arahant, right? But along the way, he's getting some really, really good stuff from them. But the best teachers are the ones who need the most to learn the Dhamma correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Sotāpanna. The Sotāpanna make the best teachers
I see.
because they're enthusiastic. They're really stuck in the Dhamma. That's the only thing they care about. And not only that, but they've got the energy to set you afire with it.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Arahant is like, oh, who buys her? Oh, another student. Yeah, I've been there, done that. And so as they grow older, they get more loose because they've finished with all the defilements. But until then, having enough freedom to where you can fly and soar and bank and all of that kind of stuff, that's when you want to teach other earthboundlings how to fly,
Mm-hmm.
how to come off the ground, to come above the world, to live your own life of joy. And so there's various stages about this, and that there's that intermediate stage, which is the noble, and that's the one who has the ability to control his own mind and is doing so joyfully.
So, Sotāpanna is attainable to anyone?
Yes, if that individual has the dedication to
Mm-hmm.
do that. Now, it's possible for someone to have dedication to do something on a serial basis. An example of that is when I was in high school, I was really, really dedicated to music
Mm-hmm.
and became a professional musician. But along the way, I also was actually I was third class petty officer in the United States Navy, so that's professional enough. With all
Okay.
the exams and everything during the Vietnam, getting into the music system was hard
You
at
went to
that.
the Vietnam War?
Pardon?
You went to the Vietnam War?
I was in the Navy during the Vietnam era,
Mm-hmm.
1966.
I see.
Okay. So then, because while I was in the Navy, I managed to get into the sound recording laboratory because of my also background, and that eventually carried me into a master's degree in electrical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so electrical engineering and all of the math and all the stuff goes with that, I had mastered that. Then I went into psychology, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually I mastered that. And all of that stuff, all of that mastery and the habit of mastery allowed me then to be in the position of being able to master the Dhamma.
I see.
Okay. But it also, began to understand that it has to do with our devotion to something.
Yes.
That you really have to become devoted to it. That this is one of the seven knowledges that we'll talk about at a later time that lead to Sotāpanna. That in fact the sutras lay it out in specific that the first knowledge, the second knowledge, the third knowledge, the fourth knowledge, the fifth, sixth, and seventh. And the seventh knowledge is actually the knowledge of the delight in living the Dhamma, the delight of being in the Dhamma. But that actually comes from the step 6, which is actually eager and enthusiastic for the Dhamma.
Mm-hmm.
But before that comes step 5, and that is the one where we become really devoted to the Dhamma. And the example is a cow who has a calf. Even though the cow is eating her grass or doing her business, still she's got one eye on that calf. All the
Mm-hmm.
time thinking about the calf. Okay, so in that respect, the monk all the time has got his eye on the Dhamma. All the time thinking about the Dhamma. All the time listening to the Dhamma, wanting to seek his teachers out and hearing his friends and talking about the Dhamma. Or in the Westerner's case, reading Dhamma books.
Yeah.
But in this case, the Dhamma books are not really as good as being around people who've got Dhamma.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the historic tradition. And so as one becomes more and more dedicated and devoted to the Dhamma, where he takes great joy out of it, that's what level that is actually the qualifications for actually being a Dhamma teacher. Now, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is a little bit more slack on that. He says that what it requires to become a Dhamma teacher is for someone to fully understand Paticca-samuppada, to completely understand the dependent origination or the sequence of events or the step-by-step cause-effect relationships of how the mind works and how it winds up into suffering.
It's like karma.
Yes, precisely. This is the karma. This is the
Mm-hmm.
karma machine within each one of our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that it always winds up in suffering if it's built in ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bhikkhu Buddhadasa says that when a student comes to the point that he fully understands how the mind works, then he may not, in fact, have all of the other of this, the fruit of Sotāpanna, but he does have the path. The path of Sotāpanna is to really understand the path of the Buddha, the Eightfold Noble Path, and how that path fits into the Four Noble Truths, and how this Paticca-samuppada actually fits that second noble truth. What's the cause of suffering? The answer is the human mind when it does this, that, and the other thing and winds up in suffering. Okay, so we're going to talk all about those details at a different time, but we're just mentioning now that at that middle level of Sotāpanna, or the completion of the path of the Sotāpanna, but not yet having all of the fruit of the Sotāpanna, is the point where Bhikkhu Buddhadasa says, okay, now it's time for this guy to teach.
Okay.
Now this
So
guy understands how the mind works. Now this guy understands the basics of the Dhamma. So now he can teach it because he's got that much of it.
it makes me think, since we're speaking about causation and effect, that sometimes a gladdening experience like the one I had may cause like suffering, but not in a obvious way of clinging to the experience. But something happened to me in the next day, um, that I had like, I think it was the worst day in months, and I don't quite know why, but I couldn't like see thoughts emerging that would like explain to me why I was like feeling that way. And even though I like did my sittings and my sessions and tried to examine it, I couldn't get to an answer. So what bugs me more is not like the suffering itself, but the suffering that I cannot see the causation for it. And I wonder if it could be like related to the experience, or there's nothing to do with it.
Well, I tell you what, Arthur, soon we will actually have a long conversation. When I say long, it may take 3 hours
Okay, no
to
problem
go
for me.
to go
I
to
would
go
enjoy.
through dependent origination. So, with the understanding of the teaching of the Buddha, that will help you to understand how your own mind works. That
Okay.
the Paticca-samuppada is really nothing more than an excellent map, but no map is the exact territory.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to find your territory, and
Yes.
this is a really good map to use, to see how all of that stuff actually happens.
Hmm.
And that your practice so far in meditation has now gotten you to the point that you can begin to have the skills to take a look at that stuff anyway. That before you were meditating, you didn't know why. You just weren't satisfied. Now you're
Hmm.
beginning to say, wait a minute, I know why I'm not satisfied. There's that junk in there. I just don't know what it is or how to get it, but I've
Yeah.
got an idea now that is actually
Hmm.
coming out of my own mind that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay? And so this is the beginning step of meditation. That in fact, the very first knowledge on the path of these knowledges that I've talked about so far, I'll go to from the beginning now. And that first knowledge is when the student comes to the state that he knows that no matter how obstructed the mind is, that he can take that stuff out of the mind and come back to the here now, to come back to the reality of the situation. Okay? That we can, in fact, throw that stuff out. In the beginning, we just beginning to think of, well, maybe I can do it one time, but as soon as I throw it out, the stuff comes back. Yeah, and so we throw it out again and throw it out again until we begin to get used to throwing it out. Once we
Hmm.
get used to throwing it out, then occasionally we have to throw out something big and huge and heavy. And when we can throw something out that's big and huge and heavy, then we get even more confidence that, hey, no matter what it comes by, even something that's an obstruction that's really huge and heavy, I can deal with that too. And so now we really begin to gain confidence. So it's the confidence in the path that I can, in fact, clean out my own mind. That's the first knowledge, and that's the step on the noble path. The Buddha says, in fact, that this step is the first knowledge on the step of the supermundane, which is above the world. It's not shared by ordinary people. This is noble, and it is a factor of the path. Okay? Not shared by ordinary people. Most people say, oh no, I'm worried. Okay? But once you've got that state, it's not that I'm worried, because that just assumes worry is here and worry just takes over, and I'm a slave to the worry.
Hmm.
No one who's come to this position says, worry, out. What, me worry? No. And so that's basically the first step, is that knowledge that we can, in fact, clean the mind out. Once we have that knowledge that we can clean it out, that's when we get the oomph or the investigation to go do the actual cleaning out, not just the stuff that is boiling to the top. Because in the beginning, all we can see is just the stuff that's boiling up, which is the hindrance. The
Mm-hmm.
hindrances are on the surface. That's what happens in the moment. But all of that stuff has a sewer that it's bubbling up out of.
Yeah.
Okay, and we got to go investigate that sewer rather than just taking care of the boiling and the bubbling.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes that boiling and bubbling seems to be quite marvelous.
Mm.
And so sometimes the stuff that comes up, like these bodily sensations or these other experiences, we begin to mistake that stuff is actually a new product that comes from the meditation. That the meditation is creating something or making a condition. And in fact, the way of saying it is a condition is much better because that stuff, that feeling like that, was probably a feeling that you had when you were 4 years old, when you were flying in the swing, whippy ki yo ki. And so the memories that we often have, that we have as an experience of feeling, is actually just a memory, not a brand newly created experience. It's just a memory of something that we've had before. And that's another way of beginning to understand this is really ordinary. Been there, done that. This is not the first time that I felt like I was 10 feet or 60 feet tall. That these are just warpings of perception. That's all they are.
Yeah. So I can apply this even to the bad stuff I'm feeling and like just ordinarize it. I don't know if it's a word, but
It's possible that you threw yourself into a funk after you lost that sensation. That I had it and it's gone. And immediately after it's gone and you recognize it's gone, now you feel the loss of it. And that feeling of loss then can set your day up to have a bad day.
but I wasn't thinking about the experience that I had.
It may have not been a feeling. It may have not been a thought.
Yeah,
This
like
this is
unconscious.
very, very primal and it could have been just feelings along.
Yeah.
And we're not really aware of those kind of feelings. But one of
Yeah.
the things that we can say generally when we have a bad day is
Mhm.
that there's a lot of bubbling going on, a lot of hindrances, a lot of spinning, a lot
Yeah.
of thought.
Uh, I think it could be like closely related to the feeling of like being able to achieve something. It immediately triggers something like the feeling of being special, but at
Hmm.
the same time you notice that you cannot like reproduce it at will. So oh, if that what makes me special, then and I cannot achieve it again. And now I'm like back down again. It may have
Now,
been the
isn't it amazing? I just told you that kind of stuff happens. You says, "Oh no, it's not like that," and then you describe it exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Is those and the thoughts are there, but they can be in different forms, and you're using the concept of special.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, um, the word special is a special word in the sense that every child that I know of, the way every child is every child is raised that you're worth something, that you kid are special.
Mm-hmm.
Every child wants to be special. Every child is taught to be special. Every child that I know of in the West is actually um, supposed to be special and therefore must live up to being special. And yet, no kid feels special. Every kid feels the reality of the situation is I'm ordinary, I am not special. And yet, our society raises us to want to be special.
Yeah.
Okay? And then what you do is you wind up singing the song, The Thrill Is Gone.
Yeah.
You've heard that song. Look it up on
I
YouTube. The thrill is
yeah,
gone. Okay, I had it and I lost it.
okay.
And you're using the quality I've had it and therefore I'm special. And when I lose it, then I'm no longer special. I'm
Yeah,
ordinary.
yeah.
And what I'm doing with that is congratulations that the thrill is gone. Because the thrill was an illusion, it was delusional, and the most delusional quality of it was is that it was special.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, it's just an ordinary feeling, an ordinary warping of the perception of the sensations of the body.
I see. I see.
But when you're doing the jhana practice properly, then when we get to that state to where we open that perception gate, then we know exactly what we're doing. That of course the body's going to start having the appearance of flying, or the appearance of floating, or the appearance of, because we're losing the sensory capability through that perceptual, that proprioceptic system that I
Yeah,
mentioned. Okay,
yeah,
and so the
yeah.
boundaries of that become loose. And so our perception of gravity changes. We lose the sense of gravity, of being pulled down, which makes us ordinary. So when one has those kind of sensations without all of the jhana factors or getting there in a systematic way, when they have those kind of feelings or experiences, they think the feeling or experience itself is special, especially if they're into meditation and they think that that has to do with meditation. Well, in a way it does, but it's better if we develop it correctly and know what we're doing rather than kind of stumble in on it.
Yeah.
And yet you can understand that, yeah, that's what happened. You did kind of stumble onto it, and then you stumbled out of it, and now you're stumbling around wanting it.
Yeah.
Okay? But we can actually work with things so that we can get the mind into that state. But we have to do it by being able to learn to control the first jhana. Once we learn to control the first jhana, then we can control as we're going up through the higher jhana sequence.
I see. But
Okay.
it like poses a challenge about like balancing the feeling of being ordinary and the confidence necessary to like achieve certain states. Because one thing like you provided to me in the last conversation of ours was like you said you can do it, you can
You
do it.
can. You
Yeah, exactly.
can be.
And that it has like it's like an animal of two heads, and like at the same time that I get confident, I at the same time get kind of maybe I'm special feeling type. But I just want the confidence. I don't want the other one because the other one is like harmful.
Okay. Exactly so. That in fact, the desire to be special is a hindrance.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
pops
I
up
can
as
see
a
that.
hindrance. It occurs as a hindrance, but there's something deeply lying under that, and that is the conceit I am. And that conceit I am is what keeps us from being friends with people, and it also makes us competitive. That in fact, when you're talking about special, that's the outcome of the competition. You're comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah.
When you become ordinary and everybody is ordinary, then nobody is special.
Yes.
Okay, so why? Because we're not comparing anymore. So even the idea of ordinary versus special comes out of the greed from the ordinary mind.
Mm-hmm.
Once you become special, then that too is ordinary. Everything is ordinary, even special. I know that's a hard concept for most people because they see that ordinary is the mass and special is the few. You can still be part of the few, but you're still ordinary. In that group of the few, you're still ordinary. That's the whole point of the Buddha's teaching is so we always on this planet Earth have at least a small group of ordinary people.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And it's about time that we had a whole bunch of ordinary people and get these good folks out of trying to be special.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
In a way, we can look at it this way, and that is that Thai society can be seen as a network. And the station that you're born in, and the family that you're born in, and the people around you, etc., is who you are. And that yes, if you want to go to university, the family and a whole lot of people will support you doing that, but you're still part of this family. In the West, we have something different than that, and that is that your social status does not depend upon your family. It depends upon what you do,
Mm-hmm.
your grades, your job, etc., like that. And in fact, in Thailand, it's a small enough country, with Bangkok being in the middle, that there's only one big city to go to, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's the go-to place. And so even the family, if you leave your family in Udon Thani to go to the big city, there will be members of your family already there waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what we found in Kopangan, that even though we moved from Udon Thani to Kopangan, we found a cousin of the family. And so we had all of the help we need to get relocated because we had somebody already on the island and we knew how to make that connection. In the West, guys are on their own.
I
But
see.
if you know a distant cousin to the city you're moving to, so what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but in Thailand, that's a big deal. So everything is still family oriented. So what makes one's worth in the West is that you've got to learn to climb the social ladder. More money, more prestige, more numbers or letters after your name, more books you've written, etc., like that, to climb that ladder, or mostly how much money you make. And this is how it gets inside one's own mind. To where in Thailand the society is set up different because the people are expected to gain what they want out of life by fitting in.
I see.
Okay? An example of that, which is quite remarkable, if the Westerner is a group of teenagers are walking down the street and one of them trips and falls, the others will help him up.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go and they'll grab him to help him pick him up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? In Thailand, if you've got a group of teenagers who going along and one of them falls down, all the kids will stand around and laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they know he doesn't need help. He can, in fact, do that on his own. But in the West, we have this whole quality of, oh, I've got to climb this ladder and I need all of this help, and we don't get the help. And so we become frustrated because we're not getting the assistance that we want and we need, because we have the attitude that this is tough work. We've got to climb this ladder. And in Thailand, there's no ladder to climb. Your job is to be able to become happy and fit in right now. So basically, this kid that's laying on the ground is not going to be resentful because nobody helps him up. He's laughing the hardest, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's enjoying the moment. But in the West, oh, are you okay? You know, that whole mentality of the way that they look at it. And so this stuff is kind of built into the society because this is a Buddhist society where everybody's expected to be already okay. You've already got what you want. You got everything you need.
There is no lack in like the other. The other is like complete the way he is right now.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's quite the opposite from here.
Well, one of them builds a grand and masterful technology by a bunch of people who don't really enjoy that masterful technology. And the other group have a good enough technology and they enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the tip of the spear is not the society that we want to live in. We want to live in the back end of the society, on the pole end of it, rather than at the spear tip.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the way of coming out of that idea that more is better. including more experience, more meditation experience, the better. That this is in fact what we call spiritual materialism, is
Yeah.
wanting things out of our meditation to make us feel good rather than practicing feeling good with or without the experiences.
Yeah.
And so when someone in India has meditation and a past life experience, and the guru hears, he'll say, oh, tell me all about it. Oh, go have another. But if that same student is in Thailand and he goes to a Buddhist monk, the Buddhist says, forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not important. Been there, done that. Ordinary, not a big deal. Don't get attached, because that's the danger, you see. If the guru has any interest and excitement about it, then he's going to make the student think that it has some value to it. Please tell me more. Okay? But the Buddhist monk is going to say, never mind. Not important. Because the teacher knows the student will get attached to it, especially if the teacher makes a big deal out of it.
So the underlining question is like how to attain confidence without attachment. I think that is like what we're discussing.
All right, let me clean that one up too. The Buddha talks about 4 modes of clinging. And these 4 modes of clinging, in fact, this word upadana is the clinging. And that upadana, the word dana, the quality of giving, well, this is upadana. That means we're taking. We've taken it. There's ownership. Okay, it's the exact opposite of open-handed giving. This is taking something. And that upadana is based upon tanha. Both of these are items on the list of Paticca-samuppada. So tanha leads to upadana in the way that we're reaching for something before we actually grasp it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So this is natural sequence of events. Wanting something and then grabbing it or taking hold of it. The taking hold, there are 4 modes of clinging. Now, we'll talk about these 4 modes of clinging at a later time, but basically it's clinging to views, clinging to rites, rules, and rituals, clinging to materialism, and clinging to the self. These are the 4 basic ones. We'll talk about it in detail when we discuss Paticca-samuppada. But the point that I'm making now is that there are only 4 modes of clinging. Therefore, the general idea in the West of attachment is not the same thing as these 4 modes of clinging, because these 4 modes of clinging are deep, they're dark, they're painful. They take us into woeful states. It makes us selfish. It turns us into painful demons. Okay? Those are the 4 modes of clinging to stay out of. Other kinds of attachments may, in fact, be quite beneficial in helping us get out of these 4 modes of clinging. One example of that is by becoming attached to the present moment.
I see.
Okay? Another one would become attached to the Dhamma, like becoming attached to the Eightfold Noble Path. Okay? So there are things that we can attach to that are quite delightful. And because they are delightful and wholesome, they're actually worth of taking it and becoming attached to. But the Western mentality is to take the easy way out. Anything that you attach to, you got to stop attaching to anything, including the things that will help you remove yourself from craving and clinging. And so they actually do themselves harm. It's almost like that your entire intention is to get out of town. You want to get out of town. That you're tired of being attached to this town. Everything that happens in this town is terrible. And then I go to the rail station, And now I don't want to get on the train because that's clinging or attaching myself to the train. For in fact, getting on the train and attaching ourselves to the train is the very thing we need to do to get out of town.
Yeah.
This is what we actually mean by karma that brings the end of karma.
Mm-hmm.
Action that leads to the end of action. Now we can see that on the moment by moment level, but we can also see it on the long term level also. The moment by moment one is to take one's right effort to throw the hindrances out of the mind, because the hindrance is nothing but the wandering, restless mind that's going on, and by throwing that stuff out, we're at peace. We have now taken the action to throw the activity out, so that now we're at peace. Action that
Mm-hmm.
leads to the end of action.
Mm-hmm.
Our right attitude ultimately will do that for us also. When we have the right noble view, then that right noble view and other factors of the path bring about the right attitude that I'm good, I'm free, I don't need anything. And so, taking that long-term practice of anapanasati over a long period of time begins to free us then of things that we do on a grand scale. For instance, people who really get into the Dhamma recognize that they can live their life happily without a job. And so they stop working. They go live at the
Mm-hmm.
Wat because that's an easy place to live. And so many people, they quit work. They know that all they need is just the basic requisites. Just enough housing, just enough food, just enough clothing, just enough medical attention, and we're good to go after that.
Mm-hmm.
But our society says, no, basics are not basic enough. We need more. You don't need a little place, you need a big place. You don't need a dirty old place, you need a clean, big, new place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so people start shopping for houses and they keep climbing that ladder, moving from this neighborhood, which is a great neighborhood, into another neighborhood that's got somehow better schools or better whatever that we want to claim is the reason for taking all of that work of moving. To where the noble-minded one is to not move into more expensive, higher class housing. The noble mentality is, how can I get out of this house and not have to get a new one?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I solve this problem without taking on a new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer to that is, well, we've got a list of what's to go to.
Uh-huh.
Got a long list of places that you can go hang out. They'd love to have an extra meditator sitting on the floor that they have to step around. And so we begin to change our attitude, and as our attitude changes about doing, we begin to stop doing. But we have to take the effort that it takes to put the brakes on it. We actually have to quit that job and to dispose of our goods and to get rid of the house, to take a hike.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time that I went to India because I knew that if I left right now, if I leave town, I'm going to destroy this life. And sure enough, it was completely destroyed. Just taking the trip to India, and it changed my life completely. So that was a big move. Sometimes we are not ready to take a big move in the beginning. Sometimes we have to let things really, really churn for a while, and we recognize, hey, yes, I can, in fact, come out of all of my doing. I'm just going to have to do a few things to get out of all of the other doing that I'm doing. In a way, it's almost like we got to go get the right tool for the job.
Mm-hmm.
If our intention, and I've seen this, in fact, Apple is very good at it, and that is that to take an Apple apart, an Apple cell phone apart, you need highly specialized tools.
Mm-hmm.
They did that on purpose. They could have used a regular screwdriver kind of screw to put
Yeah.
that thing together, but they don't. Why? Because they want to intentionally make it difficult to come apart. But if
Mm-hmm.
somebody gets the right tools, then they can take it apart. So that's basically a way of looking at it is that some jobs just look impossible. And so we don't bother to do it. But then we recognize maybe if I had the right tools,
Mm-hmm.
then if I have the right skills, then I can do the job. And so that's the long haul. The long haul is that I can get together all of the skills and tools I need so that I can live a very happy life. And that very happy life, by the way, doesn't do a lot. There's no reason to do a lot. If you're
Yeah,
happy with what you're doing
exactly.
right now, then there's no reason to go do something else. And yet the wandering mind is just wandering and going and doing and doing and doing and doing. But having that idea of, oh, I've already been there. I've already done that. Like an example is I'll see something, some Indian landmark or whatever like that. Uh, just recently, it was the stupa at Kushnagar. And that the ordinary mind would be, oh, yeah, right, I want to go see it. I've been there, but I want to go see it again. But this time when I see it, I said, yeah, I've seen that, been there, done that. A long time ago, but I've been there. Don't have to go now. Don't have to want to go back to India. I've been already there. There's nothing in India that I need that's going to make me better than I am right now. And so this is the new mentality that we have, is that been there, done that mentality, which based upon success. I've been there and I've done that. That means that the quality of having completed that operation is already there now. No need to want to go a do-over. Ultimately, that's what we have for our life, is when, you know, that the churches really fill up with old people.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? It's because when people get old, they recognize death is coming. It's real this time. When I was young, I didn't see death, but now that I'm an old man, I see it, and I don't like it a bit. All right, so let's
Mm-hmm.
go to church. Maybe the church can help me out of this problem with death. However, the mentality that we're talking about here, the mentality of the winner, the mentality of ordinary, the mentality I have been there already and done that already, means now at the end of life, I'm satisfied with the life. And I don't need a do-over. I don't need a heaven. The heaven I've got right now has been quite enough, thank you. And I don't need anything else. So when death comes, let's accept death too. What happens after death, nobody. But we have a good example from many different sources that's most likely what happens after death is nothing. And so we got to be prepared for that. And so that's how the preparation comes, is with the attitude of ordinary. Been there, done that. No need to try to be special. Your desire for special is a desire that was implanted in you by the society because they want to make everybody work.
Yeah,
The society is built upon work. The Thai
yeah.
society is built upon family. An example of that is, because I've seen it, I've actually seen this happen. The boss says, we need you this weekend. The kid says, no, I've got to go home. It's my mother's birthday. And the guy says, well, it's okay, but I need you this weekend. And the kid says, I quit. And he walks off the job, maybe a day or a week early or whatever. But after the birthday party, guess what? This kid comes back to that same boss and says, hi, I want a job. And the guy says,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Already got a trained employee, and the kid comes back to
I'm
work.
sorry.
But But in the West, they have the mentality, and I've seen this because at IBM, it was actually engrilled upon us, and I think a lot of companies have this. If you quit your job at IBM, you will never come back to work at IBM. Why do they do that? They want to make people afraid. You got to be willing to quit your job with them knowing you'll never go back to them. And that's not the issue at all in Thailand.
Yeah. It builds up like a scarcity mentality.
So if we understand it from that position that we've got everything that we need, and that these are lies that we're told, that if you quit this job, you'll never get another one here, is the mentality that they have. In fact, that's one of the things about resumes. Don't tell them that you quit or that you got fired, because both of those are bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't tell them anything, and that's good news.
Yeah.
And so, um, getting fired is not a big deal. I know because I did get fired once, and boy, I was crushed. I was so crushed, needlessly crushed.
But it
But I,
was like in India, in Thailand, in
no,
the States.
this was in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
This was in Michigan, and I got fired from ComSys,
Mm-hmm.
and I was suffering. Oh, I suffered and I suffered and I suffered. But then I got a better gig.
I see.
Much better gig, in fact. I went to work for the university as a professor, and that gave me time to go to India. And
So
so
you
it
went
was,
to
yeah,
India
that's
like a
the best thing
vacation?
that ever happened to me. I got fired, but boy, I was miserable when it happened.
Uh-huh.
What was your question?
So when you went to India, it was like a vacation?
No, guru shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Guru shopping. Took me years to shop. Had to leave the Indian store and go to the Thai store, but I finally found the guru I was looking for.
uh, I see.
So, back to the point. The original point here is to talk about the distinction between ordinary and special, because we're not looking for special. But that's what everybody else is looking for, and that's why they suffer. If we stop looking for special and start looking and seeing ordinary, we can be completely satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that what I wish for you is to be an absolutely ordinary meditator. Because the special ones are the ones who fail.
Yeah.
And
And
why they fail is because they're looking for something special in their
yeah,
meditation.
yeah.
So one last point with that, and that is when people are actually out looking for something special, then they have the idea that, oh, what we need to do is to go deep, deep into meditation. If
Yeah,
I
I
go
was
deep
doing that.
into meditation enough, then that's where I'll find special, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the teachings of Anapanasati, and actually the teachings of first jhana, is not to go deep, but to come up, wake up, be here now, see what's going on, be alive, be fully alive, be free from deep. In fact, all of the stuff that is deep is painful, so it's better to avoid it altogether anyway. And yet, Westerners, they say, oh, no, 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 I've got to go deep in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole Anapanasati practice is not to go deep looking for something special. It's coming up to the surface and becoming completely alive to recognize that this whole place is alive. That you're part of an alive system, making you an ordinary but essential component in your existence.
Yes. Yes.
And so welcome to Anapanasati. Wakey, wakey. Come out of those deep meditations. Come out of those special states. You don't need that right now. What you need is to be happy in the here now. Does that answer your question, Mr. Special?
Yeah. so much.
Well, I'm glad, because welcome to the ordinary world. Because
Thank
everything
you.
is ordinary. Nothing special around here. Isn't that marvelous? Okay, Arthur, well, let's finish this off. You have any questions?
No, I don't have.
All right. Have a happy day. May it
You
be
too.
non-special.
Okay. I see you in 3 days.
Yeah, call me in a couple of days. We'll see you.
Okay. Thank you.
Practice happily.